Welcome back, everyone. It's been a few days. I know I got some clips up. I know we've been busy, but I'm happy to be here, even though it's Saturday night. There's a million other things I could be doing, but to be honest, this is the most fun one of all. I feel this every time, and people ask me too. You guys comment on videos. They're like, "Why do you live stream so much? Aren't there other things you could be doing with your time?" And to be honest, I answer, "Yeah, but they're not really as meaningful. I don't genuinely feel as exciting to sit down and put something together on Saturday night as I do here." I've been invited out to parties. I've been invited to events, to go travel, to go network with people, but still I find myself here with you guys hanging out inside the studio here. Kind of looks like the Death Star tonight because I got that red on black vibe. It doesn't help that I'm wearing the Darth Vader fit right now. So, guys, I promise I'm here for good. I'm here to talk about good things. It's not going to sound great because current state of our world affairs right now is not necessarily sunshine and rainbows, but we'll try to make it as interesting as possible and get you things as we can. What's up, Jacqueline? What's up, Nick on Instagram? What's up, Carlos, Miguel, Aaron, Adrian, Leah, Mariah? I'm trying to name off all the names here on TikTok. Rumble, welcome in everybody on Rumble. That's obviously our main platform because we can say whatever the F asterisk we want and we won't get it shut down. That's kind of why we love that. And we're monetized on there as well as YouTube, guys. So thanks for joining us. Let's get into it. This isn't an episode number because that's usually the ones I host with Anthony, but tonight's topic is, once again, nobody's really coming to save us. And so how do you build an empire in all of it? And I want to tell you guys, the way I've thought about going about all these problems is actually incorrect. And that means probably for a lot of you too who are trying to figure out the same stuff I am, and a lot of us have the wrong formula to be successful. I did a lot of research before I put this podcasting on billionaires, millionaires, and activists and global leaders in politics and business and different types of industry that have made a substantial impact. They're all focused on a certain type of formula of success. And although you watch all the standard videos that tells you, right, invest your money, let it compound, all that stuff, I'm going to tell you that some of that is true, but a lot of it is not what we're going to be talking about tonight. And a lot of it just doesn't hold weight on the true thing, the true magnitude amplifier of your success, which we'll bring up as we go. So let's get into it. Every week, and as you've noticed, it feels like the world just gets a little bit louder. And you have tariffs, right? Protests going on in different cities. The markets are manipulated. Beta is manipulated. And we're just told to say, hey, you know what? Hold on. Just hold your horses. The government's going to come in and figure this out for us. Hold on to what? Money's slipping. It's harder to afford a standard living nowadays. Thankfully, I've been able to provide myself some breathing room with the things I have going on in my life, but I'm no different necessarily from the average American who has bills to pay and who's getting kicked in the ass by rent increases and mortgage control by these big firms, and rising insurance costs, terrible food in the market, propaganda, all of this stuff. So how do we hold on when nothing is worth holding on to? The truth is, most of us are still clinging on to the hope that the system was built to take care of it. You know, you grow up in school, especially in America. I know Jacqueline, I know you're from Canada. We get taught the education, right, of the founding fathers, right? They set up the system to work for the betterment of all people. And therefore, if we have difficulty, our goal is just to rely on the system to change things for us. I've understood that for a while. And in a lot of ways, that's great. And it works just as we say it does. The system does provide that. We've noticed recently that benefit that's supposed to be giving equality to all, that's supposed to be pushing fairness, has slipped. It's no longer fair. It's benefiting people and systems that don't need it, and it's taking away from those who do. The system was built to take care of us, but how much was the question that needed to be asked? Because somewhere in the chaos, there was a safety net, but that's getting pulled further and further away every day. Today, I want to walk you guys through what's actually going on with this, with the actual difficulties and the actual factors playing into this system. Trying to fix my lighting while I'm doing it, and how essentially, you guys can stop waiting on how to be saved. You guys can stop waiting on the handouts and how to take action today. Start building something that makes you genuinely unbreakable. That's how all this starts, and it's fixed. And I know that's that common, right? So far, it matches the common cliche of, well, just find a way to figure it out. And I'm not trying to be that person. That's not where I'm going. I'm actually going to show you a formula, a way of thinking, and a way of acting on that thinking that will allow you to make better decisions and therefore find your way out of this mess when most people won't be able to. And it's not that we're trying to beat on it. That's the problem with capitalism, is it puts every single one of us against each other. We're constantly having to step on someone else to get ahead. At least that's how it's always been. Now you have tools like AI, which I'll show you about in a little bit during this podcast, to help leverage your abilities without putting it on another human being to bear the burden of that, to give you an easier time, to invest in somebody else's work where they have to work and you can sit down and be lazy. Let your money work for you. I'm going to show you guys how to leverage systems and technology to do that. And for the first time, maybe ever in human history, there's an ethical way about it. So first, let's talk about the tariffs and trade wars we've heard so much about. This is not protection. You've heard so much about it in the news of that. Oh, we're doing this to bring business to America. We're doing this to benefit the common American. But that's not what's going on. The tariffs in the news are for economic leverage. They're a business negotiation tactic. It's essentially saying that if you put tariffs on everybody, so everyone's punished, people are going to start hurting, not just in the United States, but around the world. And so therefore, countries will be scrambling to be the people that we do business with, that we take the tariffs off. If you apply tariffs onto everybody, they will want to work and do things to benefit us that will make us take the tariff off. That was at least the mindset behind it. Sweeping new tariff just kind of went out across the board, hitting India, the EU, China, Canada, not China, and Taiwan, and triggering backlash from allies and investors alike, because a lot of those countries are our partners. This isn't just trade, though. It's political theater with real-life consequences. And leaders use the global economy essentially like a poker chip, where we put them down and we stand business, right, to hope that the other people don't call our bluff. The pot isn't filled with chips. It's filled with your rights, your gas prices, your taxes. We're playing with government money, and government money isn't paid into equally by the people with all of them. It's paid by the people that don't have enough and don't know the loopholes to break this business. So they're playing with your livelihoods, your future, your way of living, just to look like they have their shit together, or they're the cool guy, or they can pull off the sweet negotiation, or they can deploy militaries, or they can move political figures around just to make your life a little better, even though it's really not benefiting you as much as you would like it. Trade wars equal inflation, and it equals instability, because we don't know what's going to come next, just definitionally, right? If you're in a war with somebody, you don't know what their next move is. When you're at peace, generally the next move is going to be another day of peace. When you're at war, you don't know if your camp's going to get raided in the middle of the night, or if it's going to be 4 days before you guys attack each other. That's exactly where we are economically. And you don't have to go to a world war to figure this out. We can just say, well, shit, I don't know, my gas price is going to be $2.80 a gallon today, or $4.30 next week. And that hurts even more than people sometimes even shooting at each other in a smaller context, because it spreads the pain out so much more among so many more people that never even wanted to roll in it to begin with. And obviously, right, you can't deny when people are getting killed, that's an extreme amount of pain that should never be warranted. But when you have these gas prices and these economic factors that impact people that are barely getting by, causing them to essentially lose their housing, put them on the streets, right? From a utilitarian perspective, the greatest good for the greatest number of people, the amount of not good you're doing, let's just say, for a lot more people can sometimes weigh just as heavily. Plus, have retaliatory tariffs, which come from when other countries decide that, hey, we don't like what you're doing, we're going to do the same thing to you. If you're going to punish us, we're going to punish you right back and make it look like we're in control of that. And that costs consumers, not politicians, because now there's barriers on both sides. There's not a barrier to entry the other country, and now there's a barrier coming back in for good. And so it's insanely expensive to do business. And when the only other option is to print more money to stimulate the economy to get out of it eventually, then that becomes an issue. But arguably, a lot of people are putting these tariffs, these restrictions on in the first place because the amount of dollar printing in the last 5 years has gone so crazy. We printed, I think, over 90% of our dollar supply in the last 5 years. That we're doing these tariffs to slow down how much printing and money there is. We're allowing the economies to essentially catch up, but it's really not in real practice working the way that we thought it would, or really expected it to from the beginning. But in my personal opinion, it was never going to do that to begin with. These are policy decisions. They're just control moves. They're negotiation tactics. They're being played off in the news as some sort of policy that drives our country to excellence. The reality is it's just slapping your stuff around at other people and say, hey, you pay me or you're going to pay the price. Your people are going to pay the price and they're going to vote you out of office. And it's really just a negotiation between the political figures of these different nations. It has nothing to do with the common person. Actually, the only thing that is affecting the common person is the prices that they now have to pay because of it. And so you've essentially handed off as a voter all your control, but are now paying all the price. You have 0% of the say and 100% of the responsibility, which to me, I don't know, sounds like conditions that led to tea being dumped in a harbor about 250 years ago. In a world full of power plays, the unprepared gets squeezed the hardest. I want to make sure you guys know that. Your vote does matter. And who you voted for and who you will continue to vote for still matters. When you guys decide to not play the game, you're just giving people with uttermost conviction of their votes, good or bad, even more say. And so if you know that there's people you don't like, your vote should instead be defensive, not offensive. If you don't know who you want to pick, then still use your vote, but don't use it offensively to put somebody in office. Use it to prevent somebody you don't want from being in office from taking power, because they will otherwise. And so there's always never a perfect pick, I would say a lot of times, but still use your vote for the best candidates you can pick. It's the people that don't vote that piss me the most off, because it say, well, you're essentially accepting that there's inequality in the world, but you don't want to do anything about it, which is great because you might not be in a position to feel the inequality. But one day, just one day, inequality might come your way, and there won't be somebody there to help you if that's the case. And so do we really want to live in a world where that's happening? Use your vote accordingly. Use it the right way, and think about your decisions. Let's talk about Section 2, the labor data scandal. Data. When the scoreboard gets rigged. Still don't like my lighting, guys. I think is it too bright on me? Maybe it's the color. Is that good? Can you guys see me better now? Yeah, we're good. The head of U.S. labor statistics was just fired. Surprise. Quiet move, but huge implications. Because when you control the data, you control the narrative. Imagine playing a game where the ref changes the score mid-match. It's the Patriots versus the Giants in the Super Bowl. And it's 35-35. And the ref says, you know what? Actually, we're just going to make it 42-35. What do? And you say, oh, yeah, okay, that's understandable. You're all good, ref. Or do you question that? That tells you, and then the ref just says, well, maybe you need to score another touchdown to fix it. It's not my problem. That's what happens when labor, inflation, and wage numbers get tweaked behind closed doors. When they game plan the system and you're just left to pay the price of it. We rely on data to make decisions. But what if the data is fake? I'd never wanted to live in a world where I had to ask myself that question, but it seems nowadays that's almost a standard thing you should now be asking. What if the data is fake? You trust everything you hear on the news, but just because, it's a paradox, right? But not just because it's on the news, does that mean you should trust it? Or should you not trust it because it's on the news? Or should you trust it because it's on the news? It's this the news, when you understand if the news is credible or not, and instead of just believing everything you see because there's the letters FOX or CNN on the screen, when you stop doing that, you start actually genuinely making improvement. And that's probably the first round of advice I give to anybody watching. What if the data is fake? Market confidence collapses when trust dies. And it doesn't even have to be fully dead, right? So what happens when trust is declining? What happens when the president's approval rating drops 40 points in the first 4 months of office? What happens to the market? Does it stay the same? Does it get more volatile? Do the prices drop? Do the prices stay up? No, because trust in the economy, trust in the market is what makes people invest, because they believe in the outcomes of tomorrow. So they're willing to put their money to work today to make that happen, to create a better future tomorrow. That's the promise. That's the American dream that we're all sold. But when we don't believe in tomorrow, and it just never happened too much. I guess it has happened a few times, but for the most part, it's very rarely happened. And Great Depression was one. When it does, and we start to have these issues, what happened? What happens to our livelihood? People stop believing in the future. People stop believing in anything, and people don't participate anymore. They opt out, and that just lets whoever wants to take control take control. People make investment, career, family decisions on data, and they try to, rely on that data to understand where to put their money for the next 20 years. Is the S&P going to continue performing? What if the S&P data was completely fake up until now? If the S&P, if you just found out that all those numbers were a lie, would you put your money in the S&P today? Probably not, because you don't know if you could trust the information leading up to today to make decisions on the future. We haven't had to think about this question, but I'm telling you, it's going to change things. If you can't trust the scoreboard could just randomly display other numbers at a random time on the basketball game, then why would you even care about somebody scoring a bucket if you know that the scores could get inverted or flipped at any time? I know I'm breaking it down very simply in metaphor, but think about that. What if it was 50-40 and your team was winning by 10, and then all of a sudden the board glitched and it was 40-50 and your team was down 10 points, and the refs just say, well, you need to score more points? Would you care about the game anymore? Would scoring a bucket mean anything? Would your players' accomplishments mean anything? Would the hard work of the people on the field, on the basketball court, actually making the results happen be as meaningful? Would you believe in the game itself? If you can't trust the scoreboard, the only smart play is to build your own metrics. And that means building your own income system, building your own way of making money that isn't going to be effed up by policy or by tax changes, or better yet, learning from the people who are taking advantage of the systems with the tax write-offs and the business corporate deductions and things like that, and imitating those same systems for yourself. Because as far as we know, the only safe bet is to do what the elites are doing that are keeping all their money and gaming the system. Because if it's their rules, if they're the ones also making the rules, they're not going to hurt themselves. So you might as well find a way to do what they're doing. And eventually, right, it's going to come a day where everyone's doing what the rich are doing. Everyone's starting corporations and writing off things on taxes. And then we go to a point where it's like, well, why even have a government? Or why do we have the rules we have anyway? Or maybe we need to change the write-offs that are affecting the micro 1%. And that's when things will change. It's not that you just stop playing. It's that you change your rules to match what's working for the rich people, because they think that you're too dumb or too ignorant or too stupid to figure out how to play it the way they do. But when you do, and life starts getting really good, they're not going to like that you're catching up. They're going to certainly change the rules again. It's probably going to affect them just as much as it's affecting you. And so keep doing that. Keep chasing. Keep saying, well, if you're doing this, I'm going to do it too. And when it pisses them off enough, eventually they're going to have to start playing by the same rules you are. That's the only end game to this. So the first step is learning what they do and doing that for yourself. And that starts with creating your own value. Segment 3 is the 50501 protest. Financial anger wearing a political mask. Across 300 plus U.S. cities, which is obviously about 6 U.S. cities per state, people are protesting under the Rage Against the Regime banner. Rage Against the Regime banner. It's messy. It is loud. It is violent, but it's not random. Don't let the signs and slogan mess you up. Don't let them fool you. This isn't about political identity. I had to get on there. This isn't about political identity. It's about people being burnt out and broken, about being pissed off of the system. Well, this light has been pissing me off. Wow, that's way too bright, guys. Do you see that? I tweak with the lighting so much on these podcast episodes, but genuinely, it makes or breaks, I feel like, the whole aesthetic of what we got going on here. So doesn't that look so much better? I feel like it's way better. I like how my camera auto adjusts too. Though. If they get really close or far away, the lighting will kind of be on point for it. So yeah, back to it. 300 U.S. cities, Rage Against the Regime protests. They're messy, they're loud, and this isn't about political identity. It's about people being burnt out and broken. It's about the cost of everything going up while opportunity keeps going down. It's about being promised cheaper egg prices and now paying 20% more for eggs. What the fuck? Genuinely, what the fuck? What about holding your word? What about a man keeping his promises to people that he said he was going to do? What about a man actually not being afraid to fucking hold his word? What about a man caving into the system after promising so many people that he was there to help them? That is coward behavior. I'm not going to say what I'm talking about. You guys can probably figure it out. I am not going to be starting this fight, but I'm just posing a hypothetical question of if a man says he's going to do something and he doesn't do it, what the fuck? That comes in any realm of life too, right? Let's say you're the head of your household and you tell your wife, right, I'm going to go out and get us $500 this week. Go ahead, swipe the card and get the kids their school supplies and things they need. And then you just go ahead and sit on the couch watching NFL Sunday Ticket. Your credit card debt stacks up. Your wife has to then go get a job because you said that you were going to pay the bills and be able to bring in X amount of income and you had perfect capacity to do so. And then the change doesn't happen. And now you've disadvantaged other people's lives, saying that you were going to make a change and bring a positive impact into the relationship of people. And you didn't. You fucking lie. You deserve anything that happens to you, really. Like, maybe not everything, right? But for the most part, you deserve to feel the ramifications that are appropriate to the context of not having provided that, of not living up to your word. And for the most part, that can be taken to pretty high extremes, right? Especially if it's a pretty important position you're serving. Not going to call out names. Rent, loans, education, groceries, they're all unaffordable. Workers seeing no upward mobility, causing unrest. Rage is the last tool of people who fucking feel powerless. People aren't protesting politics. They're protesting being stuck. They're pissed off. And when people get pissed off, if I know it off from the French Revolution, people start getting their heads chopped off. That's just how world history works. I do know that a lot of my history might have been a hoax, but I know for the most part, when revolutions start, people start pulling the fingers up the chain, and it's a bad day to be those people. And it's only going to get louder. That brings us into segment 4, global diplomacy. The UK, which stands for United Kingdom, the Brits, fish and chips, foreign secretary is navigating war zones, alliances, and economic fallout with values-based realism. Translation is be smart, not idealistic. That's the same decision most of us are now forced. Why do I keep yawning? Values-based realism essentially means, do we keep hoping the world looks like it used to, or do we keep getting ruthlessly practical? That's kind of what I see being a big, I'm not going to just like narrow it down to this, but for the most part, I'll see Republican and Democrat perspectives be narrowed down to Republicans will say, I'm going to make decisions based on how I see the world being where it is. Like, this is how things are. We have immigrants in our country that we don't like apparently, that they're saying they don't like. What do we need to do about it? And I wanna just do something about it now. And then the left is saying, well, let's make decisions based on the way the world should be. And I'd be like, well, should we let people in? Is that the kind, appropriate thing to do? Should we just let anybody in? Like, because obviously they can both be taken to extremes, right? But then it's like, do we want do we want to look at the world the way it is or the way it should be? In my personal opinion, I lean more toward the left side actually on this, of saying that we should look at the world the way we should want to be living, right? We should, because obviously you don't just, if you make decisions based on where you are, you're going to stay stuck, right? That's kind of where you heard your conservatism. But frankly, I think we didn't necessarily always have everything figured out. I think there are some progressions we can take. I don't necessarily think that it comes to the extreme of going to where the full left end of the spectrum is going, of saying, hey, we need to just change everything up. We need to abandon all traditional values entirely, because then you get some crazy shit, right? And you get stuff going on that just doesn't make sense. But I think the real answer is like, yes, humankind up to this point in history has figured out a lot of good things, a lot of good values to keep, but I don't think we should stay there. And so obviously I find myself kind of in the middle on a lot of issues, because I think honestly a lot of people should do that too, right? I think a genuinely good perspective is we had to have something come good out of all the progression humankind has made in history and the social systems and the values we've created. It's obviously for a reason, the way things were set up. But should we stay there? No, because the world is changing, and therefore the way people interact with each other, the way people communicate, the way transactions happen, the way nations shift, the way social policies are set up. That doesn't benefit people, and it doesn't serve our interests like it used to. And therefore, things need to change. And so the real answer is like, it's not left, it's not right, it's somewhere in the middle. Therefore, it begs the question of like, when you call yourself left or right or left on any issue, or just when you go down the voting ticket sheet, right, and you just say, I'm going to vote with my party, that just reinforces the issue to me even more, because you don't necessarily align with a left or a right ideology. In reality, it's a four-dimensional matrix. It's actually a tesseract, right, of different perspectives, because you have left and right, and then you have up and down, which is that's your social up and down. Left and right is your economic kind of political standing. And then you also have a forward and backward, which is how you see technology. I think forward is, I see AI and technology being impactful on the future. And backward is, I would rather keep humanity simple, and we don't need all the technology we have going on. Humankind should be more like rural. We should be interacting with each other on a more basic level. So really, it's like, if you go to extremes and say, well, I'm left economically, meaning people should share the wealth more, and let's say down, which is not fascist, it's more socialist, right? Saying that like we should have common systems and benefit everyone equally, and we should all just get along. And then you go, let's say, back and say, I also don't believe that technology should be taking over the world. I don't think everything should be automated. I don't think these transactional systems and fingerprint scanning should be everywhere. So that's like one perspective. Or you go right, which is conservatively fiscal, and saying that, I should be able to earn what I want, and my earning is reflective of the value I put into the world in any regards. And then I go up, and then I say that I believe that there should be one central ruler. I don't believe in all the democracy stuff. I think the world is more efficient when somebody's making decisions for all of us. And then you go forward and you say, I also think AI is progressing humanity. It's pushing us forward, and therefore it's going to change the way we operate as humankind, and it's an absolute necessity. That's like the quickly as I could put it, the opposite ends of the tesseract. But then you have other ends too, right? There's different sides. So all of that was just a mind example to say, listen, it's not left or right, because you're very blatantly calling it of like a one-dimensional thing of like a line, right? You're left or you're right on a line. And not only is it not that, it's not only two-dimensional, it's not even probably three-dimensional, it's probably 4 or 5-dimensional. And it's different for every issue. You have to say at different points in history and at different parts of the political spectrum, depending on the issue, I shift differently. And therefore, in my opinion, the only proper way to identify yourself is just moderate or other, I guess, is what I put on my Hinge profile when you ask me. Like, I think it really has to depend, right? Because, again, you could be left, and you could be up. Let's say you're left and you're down, but then if you're forward, you're actually closer to somebody who's right, down, and forward than somebody who's right, up, and backward, right? So, like, in reality, like, it's more like Democrats and Republicans could be tighter on some issues than some Republicans or Republicans, just depending on other, things like that. So TLDR, I want you guys to understand, the world stops shifting. When the world stops playing fair, the only shot is to play smart. And it's not to just result back into the politics that you've had. It's to change your way of thinking and to say that, well, the world is the way it is. And the founding fathers said the worst thing we could have is a two-party system. And now here we are 250 years later, exactly at the point where the Roman Empire fell. All the great empires of history also fell 250 years later. And we're thinking we're going to be different. And we're still using the exact system they told us not to use. Well, maybe something in this like pink mass, I think it's pink. I think it's gray actually. Inside my skull, which I call a brain, is saying, well, maybe we're just complete idiots on this. Maybe something just isn't lining up. Maybe we're too stuck in our phones for a reason because we're purposely being distracted to actually wake up and realize the right way to do it. Which brings us to segment 5, the failure of hope and the trap of easy money. This is my story. This is a side story. Obviously, this is my whole story. A while back, I started a meme coin. Most of you guys have never heard this story. I just thought, hey, others are doing it. They're making bags. Why not me? I put in $900, like 500 of it I paid to start the coin, and I sold all my coin for $350 bucks. So I lost $550 after setting it up and doing all that. And actually, most of the money was lost because I had to put the rest of the money in to buy it up so I could show that it was like going up in value. Because I thought if I could buy it and show that the graph was going up and people were buying it, it would kind of spark, you kind of got to fuel the flame a little bit. And other people would catch on and buy it. Most people just ended up buying it and then selling it as I put my money in. So I actually just played myself on it. Not only did I lose money, I tanked the project, and I might have made others lose money too. But in reality, more people made money off me than I made money off other people. So it was a really big failure. It only lasted like 20 minutes, right? That's how quick meme grew. That was a wake up moment. It's because I was chasing someone else's luck. I wasn't creating value. I was gambling with fake leverage. The point I want to make is that everyone wants to make it without building anything. That's the problem again with capitalism, is that we think we can put $1 million in and get $20,000 as a check in the mail from dividends without fucking doing anything. Like, we didn't add value. We didn't go sit down at the company and advise a board on our knowledge. We didn't go help package, items into boxes. We just put $1 million of supposed value in, of stored value, which was really just saying the money is going to work for me. And I get to make money off of other people's physical labor from that point forward because I was lucky enough to be born into a family that had to begin. To me, that's fucked up. Even billionaires didn't start there. They built value first and then invested after. What most of you aren't realizing is that the billionaires out there, Warren Buffett did a lemonade stand as a kid. He was hustling. I think he did newspapers or something. I forgot what he did. But Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, they're all hustlers as kids. They all had these side little money-making projects, and they'll just compound it. For me in high school, my story is I would sell fidget spinners, right? I would buy them for like $2.50 and sell them for like $8 to kids when they were trending. And I made a shit ton of money off in my locker. And I did that. I sold like snacks. I sold other things, guys. I was a entrepreneur as a kid. I was always just selling stuff, lemonade stands, whatever it was. And so meme coins, Robinhood flips, get rich quick crap, false hope traps. They're all false hope traps because what you're doing is you're saying, I'm willing to bet that without adding any value other than my money, somebody is going to come in and add value for me and I can ride that wave. You're essentially saying, I'm going to put my money here and wait for a handout or wait for someone to grab my hand. I'm just going to sit here with my palm out and hope somebody takes it and pulls me to the other side. And that's no better, guys, than saying that I'm just going to rely on the government to provide all my benefits for the rest of my life and never work. And so when you hate on those people who then put your money into systems and assume you never have to work a day in your life to add value into the economy, you're a piece of shit, just like the rest of them. And I'm just going to say that. That's genuinely how I feel. I don't really give a shit what you feel about that. But you're just a freeloader. And I've done the same thing. So I'll call myself a freeloader too. I've done Robinhood trading, right? I made money. I made like $700 in a day just in 5 minutes buying and selling a stock. And I was like, shit, well, I didn't go to this company. I don't know shit about Apple, but I made $700 because I thought Apple would do better or worse right now. And I just got to make money guessing and checking that. I didn't add value to Apple. I didn't go work in their plants. I didn't have to slave away like their laborers. And to me, that just pissed me off a little bit because as much as I made the money, I'm like, it doesn't feel right. And there's people with millions or billions of dollars doing this at a much larger scale, not having to work anymore. Now, sure, they worked an insane amount to provide value into the world to get those billions. But from that point, like, they're just getting handed money because they had money. Risky investments, sure, they still had risk to take, but generally, they had a pretty damn safe time to it. And to me, it's just false hope traps when you're thinking that, oh, I can get rich too, just 50xing my money. Okay, well, 50 times the amount of value that my money currently has to come from somewhere. So either 49 other people will have to be convinced to get played, which is just a wrong thing to do, or I have to add 50 times the amount of value of this money to make 50 times. And I don't see you doing that. So the only other hope is that you're going to play other people on the markets. And when BlackRock controls 80% plus of the market share, voting rights of the top 25 companies. Well, then what the fuck are you thinking? Like, you think you're going to win compared to these algorithms? No. And so that's why day trading sucks. The only real option is to make your own value. In this system, hope is just oftentimes you go on Instagram, right, and scroll the traders and stuff like that. Hope is just marketed as a product. Real wealth doesn't come from belief. It comes from ownership. Ownership of your skills, ownership of tools, ownership of your cash flow. And so that brings us into segment 6 before our finale. Soldier Dollar Framework. This is the framework that I was talking about this whole time on the podcast. I want you guys to be familiar with this. I'm coining this as my own belief. I don't believe it exists anywhere else. Probably because nobody else has the military background like me that's also as interested in business as I am, that wants to combine those two things together. Let's think of you being a commander, right? I'm an officer in the military. I'm not using that to market. I'm not affiliated. None of the views I've said here are affiliated with the military, by the way. I'm also just an independent citizen, so don't link the military to anything I'm doing here. Just want that. Militarily wise, every dollar you own, right, is like a soldier. Think about, I want you to go in your Robinhood account, your bank account. Let's say you got $2,000 in there. Say that that's 2,000 soldiers in your army. Every hour you spend is a general's decision. Do you send your dollars to die in a meme war or to build a machine? I want you to get very weird on this. I don't know any other word than just weird. Let's say you're going to be buying Chipotle, right? Well, let's say you send 20 of your soldiers to die in combat, your dollars, to obtain this asset of a burrito that you're going to eat. Is that food going to produce 20 more soldiers to resupply your army, to create a greater effect of your fighting force? Or is that $20 going to help you make another $20? Is that energy drink for $2.79 going to produce another $2.79? Well, genuinely, probably most of the time, yeah, you could earn $3 pretty easily, right? In one movement of a stock, pretty often, in the right context. So, like, you have to make those decisions because real wealth is how many soldiers or dollars are deployed into tools, assets, systems, and skills. When you're deploying your soldiers into meme coin, you're basically saying, run through this minefield. There might be a treasure chest on the other side. I don't even know if you're going to find it or not, but I will tell you that there's a good chance that you hit landmines on the way over. That's basically what you're telling. Imagine your dollars are real people. You're sending these people to die, saying you might have a reward on the other end, but I need you to go do this because I can't work harder. And I know it's such a fucked up way of thinking about it. Think about the logic behind it. It makes a lot of sense. That's why platforms like Ascend matter. Platforms that I built to help you guys automate your system. Because for the first time ever, like $5 could come in and they could outreach to 200 soldiers at one time. You can now take the same amount of money and infinitely broadcast the amount of work that those 5 people can do. You're saying, I'm going to take these 5 soldiers and instead of giving you bicycles, I'm going to give you automobiles to go find more dollars. Because you're using AI, you're using a technology to power your money to do way more effect with the same amount of input. So now you pay $25 for my software and an AI will manage your clients. They'll message them every day. AI will scan all your client chats and figure out who needs to be followed up with, who needs you to message them, who needs to collect payment, who needs to have, reassuring words right now, who needs to be sent a document today. And the AI will even go write those documents, those training notices, those marketing forms, those consent waivers, whatever they are, and send them to your clients. I've created an automated system that runs an agency for you. And for the one price, right? Before you had to pay DocuSign $25 to get or like, let's say Rocket Lawyer to get a signed agreement template. Now you can do that with AI for the same price. You could do 500 of those documents, still paying the same $25 subscription. And that's why Ascend is fucking awesome if you're looking to make money on it. It's free to start. Go to Ascend Agency, ASCEND agency.io. And that's my website. Go ahead, sign up, guys. We're still in the beta testing. That's why it's free right now to get started. And I can't promise it's perfect. We're still working out a lot of the user button errors and stuff. But for the most part, the skeleton is built and it's ready to go. The people who win in this chaos are the ones who stop begging and start building. Because we were raised thinking that the governments would look out for us. That hard work would be enough. That's the game that we thought was fair, that we learned about in history class. But the truth is that it never actually was. It's that we need to believe that the government was always going to be fair to us because our faith in that is what kept money coming in to benefit people who probably didn't have to work as hard as we did. And to be honest, that's based, right? It's a based fucking take. In reality, because I think most of you genuinely see that that's what's going on. And you'll call me based or whatever for saying that. But in reality, things are unfair. You know that there's a reason you're paying more for your rent, for your mortgage now than you have before. And that's something isn't sitting right. And you don't know what it is. You don't know who's causing it. You like to point fingers at one person. And I can tell you right now, there's a lot of great people to be pointing fingers at, but it's not just one person. It's the fact that you're still trusting this outside organization that history class told you was always going to be there for you to keep being there for you. And we've been shown over and over again, that's not how it's going to work from now on. So I'm telling you instead, join a community of people, join a platform that is actually allowing you to make your own value. And you don't have to work harder, right? The rich people who deployed $1 million and got paid 40 grand a month in investment revenue for not having to do shit, but have the money to begin with. Well, you didn't have that luxury. But what if you could still make 40 grand a month and do just as little of work by having AI work for you and not be unethical, relying on human labor of other people to make you $40 million because you happen to be lucky enough to be rich? What if that was an opportunity? Now the common person can move our world forward, can create so much more value into the economy without having to slave that labor out on other human beings. I'm telling you, AI is the way to do it. There's right and wrong ways to do that. And I'm telling you, go to ascendagency.io, set up your first workflow, learn a skill, learn how to make money, join our free group to do that and build something. I will teach you guys personally how to do that. I'm on the podcast right here. I'll go hop in our community afterwards and answer your questions if you want to message. I'm going to go get probably a Red Bull or something because I'm getting run out of energy here, but I'll answer your text in the group chat if you want to just hop in. Automate your value, teach it, sell it, find a way to add to the economy, and then multiply it with AI, because that's how I can tell you 100% you'll get rich. Instead of deploying your dollar soldiers to go die in a foreign war for meat coin, stack your dollar soldiers into something that can't be rigged by someone else's scoreboard. Don't let policy kill your people. Don't let policy kill those hardworking soldiers that landed in your bank account because you felt like you had to throw them away on higher gas prices or whatever. Put them to work first in something that can create infinite leverage and deploy thousands or millions of soldiers back into your workforce. And then let those go buy your gas. Buy the assets first, learn how to create a skill, to add value into the economy, and learn how to go forward because no one is coming. So at the end of the day, if we learn how to move on our own, we will always provide safety no matter what the world looks like. It's time to go and to fucking build. That said, my name is Caleb Schilfe. This is the Ascendant Podcast. Thank you for tuning in on this Saturday. And as always, I'm rooting for you.